This is 40K Today. 40K news so important, we might need to wake up the Emperor. He is just sleeping, right? Hiya folks, and welcome to 40K Today. We're going to spend the next 15 minutes or so covering what's going on all over the world in the hobby of Warhammer 40,000. Today is Thursday, the 11th of June. I'm your host, Steve Joel, and today on the show, something a little different. In fact, we might have to do some sort of trigger warning. We're getting two high-profile content creators and great men of Warhammer on to talk about table sizes. Yeah, when tournaments transition to new sizes, what's the best way for all of us to handle that in our own games, if we handle it at all? The conversation continues in a minute. But first, let's have a look at a couple of the reveals that we've seen. So in the past couple of days, blast weapons have been previewed and discussed at length. And this is one of the big things people have been wondering about. So now we have a much better idea of what they'll be able to do. In general, the bigger the squad that your blast weapon is shooting at, the more shots you get. On the face of it, it does seem like a nice, simple way to get around one of the more frustrating non-thematic issues of 8th, which is one giant cannon shooting at a large unit but only killing one of the things. So it remains to be seen more of the details. But at the moment, it looks pretty good, right? And while we're here, has anyone else noticed that several of the previewed rules sets talk about being within engagement range? I'm wondering if this means that the confusion around 3 inches for piling in and consolidating and 1 inch for fighting, but then pulling models out of one range but not the other range, and all of that will be a thing of the past. Does that mean one engagement range to rule them all? We're running a poll on our Facebook page asking the question, will you be cutting your mats down to the new suggested minimum size for the new edition? Richard on Facebook says, that little bit of extra space can now be used to place units in reserve. Yeah, how many times have you placed a unit in reserve over there and then forgotten it and only realised in turn 4? Colton says, I voted keeping them whole, but I'm still going to adjust. Some felt covering over the edges, holds down well and gives a nice space on the table for casualties and dice and so on. Yeah, fair enough. It's always good to have that extra space for your dice. So with hundreds of votes in now, 83% have said they'll keep their mats whole. 17% are going to cut them up. We'll wrap the poll tomorrow and give you the official results. Now, while we're talking about table sizes, let's get into this properly. One of the most polarizing and triggering subjects in 40K right now. Mikey Herbert from Hellstorm Gaming. He's loving every second of this, by the way. He's been posting plenty on the topic the past few days, videos galore. And online, he seems to be right behind the idea of cutting mats down to size. Boy, is that getting people fired up. Stephen Box, on the other hand, from Vanguard Tactics, has rolled out a video that shows how to cover the unused parts of your mat with felt. So we thought it would be fun to have them on to slug it out on the show with our own John Damaris.
I am so lucky to be joined by two titans in the industry. Joining me today are Stephen Box, the best-looking man in all of Warhammer, and Warhammer 40K. Let's be careful because, we do have Rufio Symes out there, who's also a very good-looking man, the honest wargamer. And also Mikey Herbert from Hellstorm Gaming, who is the biggest troll in all of Warhammer 40K.
I will take it. The most controversial figure I'll take.
Right.
John, I really wish you wouldn't introduce me as that, but yeah, I'm going to take it nonetheless today. I'm going to take it.
Very good. Today we're going to have a discussion because you guys sort of had a little play, a little fun talking about the table size changing and maybe cutting your mat or not cutting your mat. And I just thought we'd bring that discussion for our listeners to sort of hear and get some perspectives on what we think about the actual table size changing. So we'll go ahead and start. Why don't we start with Box? Why don't you go ahead and lay out your case? And then we'll let Mikey rebut.
Okay, right. So obviously GW announced a new minimum, which apparently I can only read if it's in little quotation marks. Yeah. Otherwise, I don't know what that word means if it's not. Okay. However, GW have put forward the new minimum word for table size. So I thought, do you know what? I'll come up with a little solution which feels nice, looks great, quick and easy, cheap, and also if for whatever reason you decide actually I've tested it out and I want to play with the maximum, then you got that option too. So that was kind of my little video I made. Yeah.
So you made a video basically on how to like tape off your mat, right? To make it the right size?
Well, I didn't want to use tape because I thought that looked a bit naff.
Yeah.
Personally. So I thought, do you know what? I'm going to use felt because felt, is a nice little dice rolling area. Plus, because I stream obviously for my battle reports and stuff, I want it to look like matte black, so it looks smart and professional. I didn't want to just this nasty tape line. So I thought I felted over it. I showed the dimensions in which you cut it, and you don't need glue. You just need a pair of scissors and some felt, and you're good to go. Yeah.
Cool. All right. And Mikey, you had the controversial other opinion, right? You said people should just go snip, snip, snip with their scissors and cut it down. Is that right?
Yeah. The reason I came out with that is because I'm an event organizer as well as someone who films battle reports. So the fact that you can, if you did cut your board size down, which you don't have to do, but it could be beneficial. If you cut it down, it makes it lighter. So if you've got to move 100 mats, it does add up the amount of weight that you've got to shift. And also you can put boards closer together because you gain a foot of room on a table for every mat that you cut down, because you lose 6 inches off each side. That's a foot along the whole mat. So if you've got 5 mats in a row, now you can move them closer and get another mat on the same table at the end. But if you cut it well, I did make a follow-up video about 5 ways that you can shorten your mat, and I did mention your video as well, Steve, saying how good it was.
Oh, thank you kindly, Mike. I appreciate that.
Yeah, but one of the tips which I thought was my favorite was if you cut one battle mat well enough, you can use the offcut to lay over another battle mat. So it's like one battle mat to save them all.
Nice. Or just opt, as me and you spoke about, mate, you could supply Google with all their mouse mats going forward.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, that's a little bit of fun. You guys are both having a little bit of fun at, sort of GW's expense, so to speak.
You should cut it though.
there is a lot of actual consternation about the board size changing. Why don't we talk about that a little bit? I had Reese on yesterday, and we talked about some of the benefits of the board size changing. You guys can go either direction if you want to give me some cons or some pros. Let's start with Box. What do you think? Like, what are some pros or cons of the new size of the board?
I mean, it has. So I've play tested 6 games now on the new map size. However, I have downsized armies to about 1,800 because I'm assuming there's going to be about 10% increase on things across the board. But it does mean a couple of things, couple of pros. Terrain, you don't need as much of it, or the terrain you do have will fill out a board better. It does now mean that essentially a lot more units become very, very playable. And I'm a little bit worried they're going to become too playable. That's what I'm now concerned with. But obviously, I'm still using 8th edition rules to, with a little snippets of, what obviously they re-released. But yeah, it's going to shake things up. I think a lot of units that weren't playable before now are. The things like Khorne Berserkers, whatever it might be, Alpha Legion moving, double moving in their turn. They're in combat turn 1. There's no place to hide, from certain units like Shining Spears. They are going to be everywhere. They're all, they're up in your grill, and whether you like it or not. So there's going to be, not that, Spears were playable before, but there were just a couple of things that have really come to mind. Demolisher cannons now, straight away, they're in range. You can't outrange Tau anymore because they literally have, I'm not going to take up all the points, but I think it's going to, I don't know, I need to play test 9th before I really put my opinion down whether I prefer a 6x4 or the new minimum size. What about you, Mikey?
I echo all the points you've already made. Like things like combat armies, whilst you're still going to be starting the same distance apart, it's the fact that you can't back up any further. You are 6 inches closer when you deploy. Like there's no question about it. You're 6 inches, or you're going to be 2 inches closer because you can't pull away as far. We've only seen one deployment type, which is essentially search and destroy, and that does make quite a big difference because you lose a lot from your deployment zone because you're losing an entire corner section. But yeah, so gameplay terms, until we see more, it does look a little bit scary. For example, like Death Company using full-on Fury, so they're moving 24 inches and then charging. They could probably charge the other side of the board turn 1 now.
Yeah, they definitely can. Yeah.
But I'm going to play devil's advocate for you guys a little bit here.
Sure.
And just point out that they could already do that. And sure, you lose 6 inches off the back of your deployment, so maybe you have to put something in there. But honestly, if you just put a good screen in front of them, and you're like, bring your death company in and kill these 10 guardsmen. I don't care. Kill 20 guardsmen, whatever. Now I get to kill all your death company, and I take your queen for my pawn. I mean, that's ultimately what's going to happen in the competitive game, right? People will just do a better job of screening their deployment so that you can't get to the bits that they care about. And anything that has to be out of range that you just absolutely don't want touched by the death company, there's still room to put those things out of range. And with the new deployment rules, with the new reserve rules, with you able to put stuff to come in on outflank or whatever just for some CP, you don't have to deploy your entire army. You have options. You can, take those tanks that you don't want to alpha off the board because they're in range of everything on turn 1 by Tau. Yeah. Put them in reserves, bring them in on 2, and then do your thing. So I see where you're going, right? I 100% see that the board is compressed, but honestly, the game happened in the middle of the table anyway.
Just to back up your point, it's going to be easier to screen stuff out as well because your deployment size is smaller, so you're not going to have to spread out as much with like chaff units to kind of cover your backside, as it were. So for the reasons you've pointed out as well. But
I certainly understand you guys have very valid concerns because there's going to be a greater terrain density on the tables because of the smaller sizes, because terrain pieces were all designed with the bigger tables in mind. So those L's are already a certain size. Everybody already has them. So they're just going to take up a larger portion of the board, the corner ruins, everything else, right? And they're introducing new terrain types, which they have the obstructing rule that they've already previewed. So that's also going to give, it looks like, more cover to things as they cross the board. So maybe this is going to be more of a melee edition, but then they tell us that they're going to let tanks shoot in combat. So I'm confused. I don't know. I can't tell where it's going to go, but I'm excited about it nonetheless, right?
Yeah, I'm really excited. I was going to say that I think the terrain rules are going to make and break the new board size, because if the terrain rules suck, then the board size is going to really hamper most armies.
We're going to end up with some very quick games. One of my games the other day was 37 minutes long.
Oof.
Quick.
I bet that'd be nice to film.
Yeah. Not so much editing, yeah. But the thing that I love about the game currently, pre-night, is how cagey you can play if it's a bad matchup. Now, take away some of that board edge because you're losing like 23%. Is that still going to be on the cards? I don't know. Or are you forced to go down, the gullet of the enemy? I don't want a route one way to play a list. I love having, tricks up my sleeve in, that sort of element of I've got options here and I can play defense, I can play offense because I've got room to maneuver. So I really hope that's still present in the up and coming edition. And I'm sure GW have done that because the recent changes they've made over the last sort of 2 years since 8th has come out has been incredible. So I am extremely excited to see what's to come. And, I'm very open-minded, and that's exactly where I hope everyone is, and if you have seen, the videos on the minimums or whatever it might be, and me and obviously Mikey joke about it a lot, but look, play the game how you want to play it at the end of the day. But if you want to go to some of these big events like the LVO, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but they have said that they are going to be moving over to the new table format, then if you want to be good at tournaments, get good at practicing on a table format. That's exactly what I preach all the time is, essentially practice doesn't make perfect, but it makes, form those habits in, you're going to get that muscle memory.
Yeah, exactly. Like, the game is yours at the end of the day. If you want to play at home and you've got a board already, then play on the board already. You could play on a 7 foot by 5 foot board up until now. No one was stopping you, but no one's stopping you playing on a 6 by 4 in 9th. But if you're going to go to an event and you want to practice for it, which is kind of like the angles that me and Steve are coming from, is get ready to play on a small board. Small board gang, rise up.
That's it. I know the events that I'm planning on running in the future, they're going to be on a small board. So you've got to move with the times.
Well, I mean, Mikey even touched on that, right? all of the major events have already announced that they're going to the smaller board size and using the GW missions, which I think is great because having everybody across the world standardize on the same mission set is going to allow us to better compare players across different locales, which will be fun, I think. There won't be this weird, we never play ETC missions, so we don't know how to play them or whatever, whatever excuse you want to pull out. The other thing I think is really great about the board size changing, besides a couple things. It's going to allow event organizers to grow events without growing the size of the event, the venue itself. So LVO can house, I think, an extra 100 tables at the new size in the same size room that it's in. So think about that for a second,
It's
right?
going to be beneficial to everybody.
Yeah.
And if not, then you've got extra room around the edge to put those dead models, to put those dice, so it doesn't clutter up the board, So you've got it's pros and I only see benefits at the moment, certainly from a TO perspective, of how if we do have faster games, then we won't have such issues with slow play, or maybe we can. In UK, we play 5-round tournaments, don't we normally, Mikey? So this means maybe on a Sunday we can get that third game in, so we can have 6-round events. I think there's so much to be gained from this, so I'm extremely excited about what is to come in the future, and I can't wait to see. I just want it out now. I've got this hunger to play ninth.
Yeah, nobody wants to play 8th right now. Let's be honest. Like, we play because we're addicts. It's kind of like getting our fix, but it's not as good as the new drug we want, which is 9th edition.
I do feel a bit sorry for GW releasing these Psychic Awakenings, because everyone's a bit like, yeah, but what about 9th? They're like, no, what about this new book that's coming out? And everyone's like, yeah, but what about 9th edition?
Last thing I want to get your guys' thoughts on, because you're both content producers, and so you're both invested in the overall growth of the hobby. One of the things that was pointed out to me is the new table size is actually a standard IKEA kitchen table size, which means if people want to play the game and engage with the game at home, that it's going to be an easier transition. They don't have to go get boards to put on top of their board to play at a proper size. They're going to be playing the same game as everybody else right on their kitchen table, which means it's going to be a more approachable game and bring us more players and help the game grow, which is good for everybody, because as I say all the time, high tide floats all boats. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I'll quickly go in first, Mikey. But yeah, I used to work for the national governing body of volleyball, and if you want to improve the peak of your elite section, then you need to work on your grassroots. Grassroots is so important for the success of any sport, any game out there. So I completely am on board with that, and that's exactly why. I set up my channel was to help people transition from, playing in their gaming club or playing with their mates to going to an event and playing at tournaments. I help the transition between those standards with absolutely everything I do, from my free services, content, to my paid product. That's what I'm all about, whether it's helping sportsmanship or whatnot. But yeah, I think this is a great step in the right direction, and no doubt we rise the bottom, everything like you said there, John. We'll have a bigger elite pool at the top. That means more competition. That means we will improve each other's gameplay.
Yeah, totally agree. But I was going to say, I've got a pro and a con about the smaller board size in that regard. That the pro is that you can play at home, you can practice for events at home, and it's, as you say, it's easier. It's like an easier way to get into the game. Is that you can roll a mat out at the correct size on your table at home and practice with a friend, and you won't need as much terrain and stuff like that. I think a couple of people have come to me a little bit concerned that own game stores or gaming clubs. The problem is with making it more accessible at home, they're worried that people are going to stop going to game stores or maybe stop going to gaming clubs because they can play at home. But I suppose it's finding that balance where if you play at home, you play with someone but if you're going to go to a game store, you might be able to play someone new. So it's just something that people are concerned about. But I mean, it's only going to grow with a hobby. Just make sure you support the people who supported you until then.
Yeah, I think just to quickly touch on that one, it's all about, for me, it's about the environment that you play in. I can play at home, but do you know what? There's something quite unique about playing at your local gaming store. You get that little bit of extra. I'll buy myself a nice coffee or a nice drink or some snacks, whatever. There is something certainly, or playing on a different table with different terrain, or maybe you play against somebody different you haven't played against before. There's certainly, the environment adds to it. The opportunity to buy some, pick up some paints, whatever it is you need. It's like, I can't train at home, but I love going to the gym. I'm still doing the same stuff, but there's just something about the environment around doing it around other people that are doing the same thing. The environment, spurs you on to be better. So I think, that is definitely probably a concern, but I think there is still something quite unique and special about going to your local gaming store and playing it. It just gives you that little bit of extra, like going to Warhammer World, isn't it? It's like,
exactly.
That's it. That is special.
I think what store owners are kind of just thinking, though, is just like, don't forget where it came from when the new board size does come out and you can roll it out at home. Just go and support your local store, basically. That's all I'm saying.
And I'll just close out with echoing that. If you should absolutely support your local game store, because they're the ones that built this hobby from the ground up, along with GW's help. And thanks, guys. Really appreciate your input. Hopefully people start to see this board change in more of a positive light, because I really think it is going to be a positive change for everybody.
Yeah.
It's just going to take a little time to get used to the change.
That's Mikey Herbert from Hellstorm and Stephen Box from Vanguard Tactics speaking to our John Damaris. Links to both Facebook pages, which are packed with videos, are in our show notes.
Today's episode of 40K Today is brought to you by Frontline Gaming. Frontline Gaming is a one-stop shop for all your Warhammer hobby needs, discounted products, American-made gaming mats and terrain, and a full line of miniatures painting service and daily hobby content. And this can all be found at frontlinegaming.org.
All right, folks, it's time for your favorite earworm.
It's the model of the day, the model of the day, the model of the day.
And today's model is by Dolthar on Instagram. It's a Primaris captain of the Sanguinary Guard. It's stunning. This is, you know, the captain model that has his leg up on terrain and then he's leaning forward and kind of resting on the leg, holding his helmet on his hip with the other hand. But this one has wings, huge, stunning wings. The gold armor is amazing and the wings beautiful. But what really grabs you is that face. The way it's painted and modeled, it's angry and exhausted and bleeding, and it's just wow in every way. It's perfect. He's given his character a name and a story as well, which make for great reading. You can check it out on our Facebook and on our Instagram. It is totally worth going to have a look at this model. And if you have a model, by the way, that you would like us to feature on the show, or if you've seen a model that you think needs to be featured, don't hesitate to let us know. We'd love to hear from you. And that's it, folks. A big thank you for joining us. Thanks also to our content producer, Alex Painter, our social media producer, Tanya Gates, our technical producer, Seamus Ronan, and thanks to you for being a big part of the radio show, the podcast. You know what I mean. Old habits. If you like the show, get on over to Facebook, give us a like and a share. Same for Instagram. We'd love to get your feedback anytime, anywhere. And if you feel like dropping a review on iTunes or your podcast player, it'd help us out a lot. We'll see you tomorrow for a power-packed Friday episode to set up your 40K weekend. Until then, for the 40K Today team, I'm Steve John, and that's what's happening in 40K Today.